Fine. Yeah. Hey, all you GGLians. So I'm Drew or Dark Helmet, whatever you want to call me, and I run the Canadians, as you know. And I've been doing a bunch of stat stuff, and I'm going to show you a good portion of the stat stuff. Like again, I think this is somewhere. Like I've shared this document. It's somewhere in the Discord. If you need it, sorry, I just accidentally muted myself. Feel free to ask for it, and I'll send the link. I had no issue sharing this with everyone. I think I already have, but again, if you want to have an eye on this or you want to keep track along, whatever, more than welcome to do so. So the only things that I actually hand input into this is going to be games played, points, so these two, and then your other basic counting stats, your goals, goals against, shots and goals, and shots against. Everything else is calculated in Excel. Everything else is calculated in Excel, right? So like there's a lot of this here. Most of this I actually don't input. It takes me 5 minutes to input these things. So things I'm going to show, we'll start with point pace, that just takes your point percentage and then multiplies it to, your 80 times 82 times 2, and that will give your points. Actually, let me reformat this so that it doesn't have the, actually, yeah, we'll reformat this. So, boom. Expected point finish. This takes your current points, throws them into my magic wizard formula, which we'll get into, and calculates how many points you should get for the rest of the season. I mean, it's not nearly as effective here because it's the end of the season. Let's say we go to my trade deadline. You'll see the point pace is different from your expected point finish most cases, and then after that, expected goal differential, which I can find, like difference expected position, expected goal differential. Expected goal differential is my way of calculating how many goals a team should have, goals scored get forward in relation to goals against. You'll see teams that are the best, i.e., Colorado, with a higher goal differential than the teams that are the worst, Columbus. In this. And what it does is it takes a shooting percentage, multiplies it by the amount of shots your team has, and then you subtract that number from the amount of shots your team allows times a save percentage, right? So the way that works is, that's kind of how expected goals works in real life as well, except expected goals in real life instead take shot locations, and I don't necessarily have that data available, so I can't necessarily say a shot within 5 feet of the crease is worth 0.8 goals instead of it's only going to be worth the point however many it is. I can't differentiate shots from the point from shots in front of the net. So in this, we're assuming all of it's the same. It's not perfect. I get it. There's flaws, plenty of flaws in the system. Relative shooting percentage. So this is how like your team shooting percentage in relation to the league. So when he says minus 0.42 for Anaheim here, minus 420, that means they're shooting 0.4% less than what league average is, right? So you'll see teams with a higher shooting percentage. So we'll take a look at, I don't know, Colorado, right? They're shooting the lights out because, they're a really good shooting team. Goals per game, shots per game, that's pretty standard. Team save percentage, goalie differential. We'll go into the goalies right away. So goalies, here are all of the goaltenders that have faced 820 shots or more in GGHL 2033. In it, I have goals allowed, shots faced, saves, save percentage, goals saved first average, wins above average rank, and save percentage rank. Super simple, nothing terribly complicated. So goal save for average, what this does, and save percentage, what they do is, they kind of work together in this. So goal save first average, you'll take whatever a league average save percentage is, you'll subtract it from what your goalie save percentage is, right? And you'll have some differential right there, right? And then that differential you will accumulate into a goal saved for average, right? So Billisberger here, we'll call him Billisberger. Jones here saved 20 more goals than he quote unquote than a league average goaltender should have, right? And I was able to determine that certain amount of goals equals an expected win. I'll show that formula later, but that turns into wins above average, right? So how many more wins your goaltender was able to create because of the pucks that they stopped, or how many they lost because of the pucks they didn't stop, right? And then this is them ranked. So for, I'm going to scroll through this so everyone can see if they want to see where their goalies react in this. First was Hamerla. Second was Rodrigue. Third was Carter Hart. I don't think anyone's terribly surprised by any of those three being the top three. Something that this does probably overvalue is if your team gets shelled and you have a good goaltender in there, it will value that goaltender more than a goaltender that plays behind, let's say, Poikin in the Avalanche. His team doesn't get shelled like at all, and therefore his goaltender has less of an opportunity to accumulate goals saved extra, because they don't face nearly as many shots. So there is a little bit of a flaw in the metric. However, I still feel it's going to be a generally great way of evaluating goaltender talent. Goalies game stretch. So this is down the stretch. So this is from the trade deadline to the end of the season. So I actually stopped doing the day-to-day tracking after the trade deadline. And so because the deadline is my stats that I'm going to try to save and use for my analytics final. So I just decided I wanted to preserve those stats because I have CSGs for some of those stats, some of the player stats. So I'll be able to better use that data for my project. So I want to save some of my stats. So that's why they also see deadlines and whatever. We're not going to refer to that. But the stretch I'm going to refer to because I feel like the stretch run is kind of very important, right? And it kind of sees how your team plays with the trade deadline acquisitions you had in front of them, or if you made a coaching decision. Like it can differentiate how you're going into the playoffs from the rest of the season. But all right. Overall, so playoffs. Actually, we'll hop into R first. So this is R. If those of you that are unavailable, make sure that you can see this. I'm just sharing my full screen. Cool. And GGHL linear regression. So this is the R code. It's nothing you don't need. If you want to look at the R code, cool. If you don't, whatever. I made 3 small little graphs for this. It's nothing out of the ordinary. That's the same stuff I've been showing all season. So this is expected goal differential. So that purple line, right? That purple line is they call the line of best fit, right? It's linear. That's when we refer to linear regression. It's kind of what that line is doing. So that line of best fit is exactly what it sounds like. It's a line that's meant to be the best middle point, like where all the distances are from, right? So for example, Colorado is a little bit above the line. Cool. But it's a line that creates an expected where you're supposed to be at. Teams are going to go above and below it. So this is me trying to doing one for a linear regression model for point percentage in relation to expected goal differential. So this is expected goal differential without any of the modifiers towards it. Actually, expected goal differential without any of the modifiers on it. And that just uses your team save percentage, and it uses league average shooting percentage. It doesn't do anything fun with your own team shooting percentage. But this is how it looks. We see that Colorado is slightly overperforming Florida, Edmonton. But again, these are all super within the margin of error, we'll call it. So again, none of these are extremely large outliers. The largest one I think is Dallas. And that's because they have a lot of defensive forwards and they can't shoot. So it makes sense why their expected goal difference should be a little bit lower. Here it is with league average goaltending. So the reason why I wanted to show this one, and we're going to talk about Toronto a bit specifically here, is that if all the teams had the same shooter tutor in net that allowed a league average save percentage, every goaltender, no matter what position, whatever. This is what the point percentage should have looked like, or expected goal differential should have looked like. So a team like Toronto, who had relatively poor goaltending all season, or Montreal, who's had their ups and downs, or Pittsburgh, who had the Ott injury, are performing below what they could have been doing if all of goaltending was a level playing field. We know goaltending is not a level playing field, but this is something that I wanted to, to show specifically how much goaltending tries to affect your point percentage, right? Because for a team like Toronto, league average goaltending in comparison to what they got is a huge jump from relatively middle of the pack between Buffalo and Ottawa, where they probably should be making the playoffs French wise, to being one of the best teams in the league. That's the reason for that is because let's go back to Toronto. That's because Toronto here, it was one of the best shooting teams in the league, was the best shooting team in the league, and the fifth best shooting, defensive team in the league. It's just that their goaltending, save percentage wise, collectively was 26th in the league, right? So their goaltending, Molu, I think specifically, was the one that played majority of their starts. Yeah, Molu played majority of the starts and was worth, -3 wins against average, not -3 wins against, above average, which most goaltenders in the playoffs are going to be collectively. They're -3 wins against average. So Molu had a rough go. How was he down the stretch at least? Was he at least good down the stretch? No, he was just as bad down the stretch, if not worse. So Molu, I would say if Toronto is able to fix their goaltending next season, they might be a team that's worthwhile. Anyways, let's look at some of the teams that are going down the stretch before we hop back into our. Actually, no, stop first. So the expected goal differential with league average goaltending, as we showed, certain teams, their goaltending is what failed them ultimately in the season. Expected goal differential with team save percentage and shooting percentage. So this is the same idea, same concept, line of best fit. But if you take your team save percentage, so you calculate expected goals with save percentage, and you calculate expected goals with your team shooting percentage. As you can tell, this is a lot closer filled line. I would argue that, personally, I see the line a little bit more like a so. I'm not sure if you can see my pointer, but I'm pointing more horizontally than I am vertically there. But again, the R values on all of these, so R squared values specifically, are all extremely strong. So that means there's a very strong correlation between expected goal differential with the various attributes and point percentage. But I'm not surprised that about that at all. It's kind of expected. Anyways, and let's go back to stretch run stuff, and then we'll do stretch run, we'll do playoffs, and then I'll call it. So for the stretch run, so I was able to do, this is just from the trade deadline on. So there's not the same amount of games played. I think the lowest is 17, the highest is 22. And that, you can see them in here. I can sort all these. I'm just going to leave them alphabetically to make shit easier for us. Easy for me to navigate. Down here is I have some league average stuff. So if you see averages above or below, that's just league average. You don't really need to pay attention to that. You're just going to see if you're above or below average. That's how you do it. Anyways, if you were just to use the league stretch, if you're just going to use the end of the season stretch to try to extrapolate for the full season, this is what your expected point total would be, and this is what their position and ranks and whatever. So that's how you finished your season is going to show mostly in here. But if you wanted to go deep dive into the other stuff, we can totally do that, and I totally plan on doing that. So expected point pace. Oofta. Anaheim had a rough end season, eh? Oofta. Kyrie was pistol hot, but the model doesn't necessarily expect him to be pistol hot. This is where you can see those discrepancies. Same with Carolina, Colorado for a little bit. Edmonton was on, wow, eh? Edmonton's strong. But a lot of them are a lot more closer, take a look at mine, or we'll take a look at Ottawa's even, or New Jersey's. Most of them are relatively in line with what their expected point thinks, but this is what they would finish off from the season. I'll slide this over, so if you want to pause the video and look at it yourself, you're more than welcome to. And again, it's PDO. And this is what the league average save percentage and shooting percentage was. So shooting percentage, save percentage. I have it over here, so that's easier to use for my formulas. And then playoffs. Okay, so quartiles, first quartile, second quartile, third quartile, fourth quartile. I don't think I need to explain that. Green is good, red is bad, right? All right, so we have Colorado versus Minnesota. Overall, Colorado, it's. I don't think we need to say much more than Colorado's going to win it. I'm going to give them the gentleman sweep over Minnesota. St. Pierre was solid for the most part throughout the season. At least that actually no, lay that. St. Pierre was decent down the stretch, but ho hum in the for most part over the season. For some reason down the stretch, their amount of shots they've taken has they regressed, and so has their shooting percentage, which I bet their shooting percentage has just decreased, not because their players don't know how to shoot anymore, i.e. Michkov. It's just chance variation that happens. Shit happens sometimes. Simulations, it's the reason why you can simulate the game thing multiple times, get different results. Colorado, Poikinen had a rough end of the season. I'm not sure we're talking about that enough. He had a rough go. Bring his numbers to be, just about league average for the most part. League average starter, I should say, for the most part. So I'm going to give Colorado 5. St. Louis, Winnipeg. My model has been pretty solid in St. Louis. My model was really solid on Hamarla. Buddy saw a lot of rubber. He stopped a lot of rubber. He didn't necessarily do that in St. Louis. I'm still going to go with St. Louis in 6, though. While Winnipeg is an extremely strong team, I've been relatively hesitant to believe in them. For the entirety of the season, Winnipeg's been a team that's been overperforming themselves, according to the same linear regression model I've been posting. And then Wallstad's been rough at the end of the season as well. So I'm gonna go St. Louis in 6. If Wallstad's able to figure it out and they're able to perform over the stretch run, like they can perform over the stretch run, like if they're able to perform over the stretch run, or they're able to perform in the playoff run like they were in the stretch run, they could do some serious damage. I'm never going to discount the Jets because they have had a team where they're the 8th seed that makes a run, right? But I'm going to go with St. Louis in 6. I think Eichel and Draisaitl down the middle is still super strong. I mean, they've been really good with shots for shots against. They've been better with shots for. They have a really good shooting percentage, which I'm not sure how to feel about that, but I have them as a top 10 team overall, and they've been performing like a top 10 team over the stretch. So I'm going to go St. Louis in 6. Calgary, Arizona. Honestly, this is probably closer than what I would have expected. I mean, like Calgary's coming to end the season pistol fucking hot. Excuse my French. And Arizona's also been good. Arizona's just been solid good throughout the entirety of the season. Haviland's been refining his game. Overall, his numbers are ho hum, but they are better, not great, but better to end the season. I'm going to go with Calgary in 6 here as well. I know I'm taking all of the favorites, but I'm going to Calgary in 6. LA, Edmonton. My model's been really high on Edmonton throughout this. One thing that's weird about LA is that it's kind of a little bit lower on Carter Hart for some reason. That doesn't pass the sniff test. Aha, that's why. Fix that. No, fix it. Okay, yeah, Carter Hart is sick. I don't know why I didn't pick up on that earlier. That should have caused a red flag. Carter Hart is sick. Their offense isn't the greatest. I'm going to go give this one to Edmonton in 7, though. Oh, that was a really bad spelling. I'm going to go Edmonton in 7. They're just a lot more complete team. Rodrigue and Hart is basically an equal match, I feel. And then Edmonton's offense is just better. So I'm going to go with the Edmonton Oilers are going to be the LA Kings in 7, which will lead us with an Alberta battle and Colorado St. Louis, which though I feel both of those matchups would be very fun just for A, Alberta battle, and B, having Logan and Aust against each other would be a fun matchup, I feel. And anyways, Carolina Buffalo. Buffalo went to the reason why I wanted to have stretch statistics is because of Buffalo, and my model still had Buffalo super high at the deadline, and because I wasn't adjusting for player quality. And I don't necessarily have the resources to really do that. I mean, I do now with the CSVs, but I just didn't have the time to do it in time. And regardless, Buffalo wanted to make their team shit at the trade deadline, and they fucking accomplished that like insane amount. So LDP had a rough go to say the least to finish the season. Actually, that's LDP. No, that's not LDP. Why is my model wrong now? I just typed this in. Sorry, apologies. LDP had a fine go. I was looking weird. Anyways, their expected goal differentials was 30th. Shots against per game is 31st, so that's 30th because some of my ranks have the league average in there. So usually just subtract one for most of these. Just subtract one for most of these. And their shots against, they just kind of turned it into a pumpkin. They're not a very good team anymore. Carolina, I'm going to give them, and I think Carolina is going to mop the floor because the Buffalo Sabres overall have been worse than the Columbus Blue Jackets from the trade deadline on. And that's hard to do. That's really hard to do. Like, Columbus Blue Jackets are the Columbus Blue Jackets for a reason. And Buffalo somehow started performing worse than them at the end of the season. So that's because they traded everyone. So Buffalo will definitely lose to Carolina. If you're picking Buffalo in this, I'm sorry for your loss. Pittsburgh, New York. I had Pittsburgh beating New York. Pittsburgh's goaltender situation. The goalies in this, with this calculation, is using not Sequoia Jones, Ilya Samsonov in net. So that's why their numbers are low. But if Ottinger's up and ready to go, that dramatically changes Pittsburgh outlook. I don't think they'll have an issue with the Rangers either way because Samsonov's about the same level as Rasky. Rask. Rasky. We'll call him Rasky because there's an E at the end. I like Rasky better, anyways. Rasky. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been great down the stretch. He hasn't been great all season. But Pittsburgh, I believe, will definitely win this. Since the goaltending is about even, we'll go the Pens and 6. This is actually Pens and 5. Florida, Tampa. This is going to be a Florida sweep. I'm just going to start that right now. Florida is going to sweep the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I will eat the crow if I do need to. But my model has been always super weird with Tampa Bay, and I believe in my models because I like inputting the numbers, and I like it when it's right. So Florida is going to mop the floor with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Spencer Knight could steal a game or two from there, so if it's not a sweep, close. It's going to be close to it. Vasilevsky is just as good, if not better, probably better than Spencer Knight or Jeremy Swayman because I've had both goaltenders qualify under my model. But for this showing, it's just under Spencer Knight. But again, Florida's going to be sick. Florida's sick. They're shooting relatively lower than what they should be, which is why, for the most part, they've been underperforming. And they're a top 5, top 10 team in the league, and I don't see Tampa anywhere close to that. So Florida in 4. Now, I posted Boston is going to lose to the Montreal Canadiens in 5. Hear me out. Shesterkin is not that great. Shesterkin is not that great anymore. He's fallen off. He's middle of a pack starter now. Compare Shesterkin to Kirkby. They're pretty similar. Kirkby's coming in pistol hot too, So overall, that's part of the reason why I'm confident that the Montreal Canadiens will beat the Boston Bruins in 5. They might do it in 6, but I'm saying it in 5 because Logan said he's going to do it in 6. He's going to waive his goalie or something like that. So they're going to happen in 5. that might be a little bit hot takey for me, but Montreal is just a top 5 team in four in shots for, shots against. If Kirky's going like the way he's going, they're a top 5 team all around. Like even with Kirky having an up and down season, their expected goal differential was 5th overall. Like I think Montreal is just kind of strong, and it's weird for me that Montreal is this strong. Anyways, if you guys have any other questions or if anything specifically about this, let me know. And yeah, this is a fun first edition. I'm not sure if there's ever going to be a second, but this is kind of what I've been doing. I just wanted to show it to all of you. I plan to add more to this as we go on. And something I'm going to start doing next season for this is that I'm going to start doing month-to-month stats. So kind of like how I had the trade deadline for stretch, I'm going to, differentiate all of these within months, and it's not going to take me any more time. I promise you. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for this. I mean, if you have any questions, again, let me know. My DMs are always open, and I hope you guys have a great one. I did stop recording. No, now it's going to stop recording.